How have the first few weeks been as minister? And I know there's lots of travel, lots of meetings, lots of just catching up with the fire. What's it been like?
Well, it's definitely drinking from a fire hose metaphor. It's been exhilarating too. It's been really exciting to be in Ottawa with a new government, new prime minister, feeling like a new mandate to really deliver in arguably the most intense times of our generation. It's having the U.S. Basically attack our economy and lose them as our number one ally has been, I think, really difficult for all of us psychically. It's a big adjustment. It's a huge impact that's starting to impact all across the country, different industries, obviously economically, and housing and infrastructure are a big part of the solution to that. I think because our domestic economy is hugely steeped in building both housing and infrastructure that's related. So I feel like I got an opportunity to build homes that people need, and also to fight back on building the Canadian economy.
Okay. Let's talk about the housing issue, particularly affordability. It's probably the most overused word. We all use it, talk show hosts to ministers, everything else. What does affordability actually mean under your plan and your thinking? And how does the average Canadian know when we've reached it in your mind?
Yeah, I mean the standard definition is less than 30% of your take home pay into housing. So that's the level we try to get as much of the population, as many people as we can, spending less than 30% on their housing. So that's the definition. The challenge is we have not built enough housing for generations, basically, and particularly the federal government got out of the housing business about 30 years ago. And so we have gone into basically last place among the developed nations for non-market housing. Almost all the other developed countries have a multiple. We have roughly 5%, call it. But there are countries with 10, 15, 20% below market housing, and others with a multiple of that. And that means everyone in those countries has a place to live that is affordable.
But isn't that impossible for Vancouver?
It is very, very. It's going to take a lot of years to dig our way out of this.
Because sometimes I've heard numbers of 60, 70% of our post-tax income goes to housing in some cases. Maybe lower, I don't know.
Yeah,
but certainly
for a
hovering
small
around,
percentage of people, that is
not
the case.
Not hitting around, it's not remotely 30% though.
Right.
Isn't it impossible in this market when it comes to traditional housing?
Well,
now?
that's where we have to do transformative action with housing. That's where we have to use every tool we have, not only the federal government, but the provincial governments, the city governments. We need to transform how the private sector builds. We have to do more. We'll be investing significantly to do more off-site manufacturing, speeding up the process so that you assemble more quickly on the site. You can build cheaper. The permitting process takes too long. That costs a lot of money. The development charges attached to all the infrastructure, there's costs loaded up everywhere. And we've all been in different spaces in terms of the government's kind of working at odds with each other. When I was mayor here in Vancouver, I couldn't get help, as Vancouver was the first Canadian city to be hit by this affordability crisis. Now it's everywhere. Now it's all across Canada. It's all over the world, all over the U.S., Australia, Europe, you name it. But Vancouver was one of the first cities, and at the time, I couldn't convince the provincial or the federal government that we're the canary in the coal mine. And if we didn't tackle this much more forcefully in Vancouver with all levels of government, we're going to lose affordability in our city. And, we've seen what's happened here, and now we've seen it spread because that pattern didn't get broken. So, now I can take my learnings, the mistakes and learnings that we have over the years and, serve the country and help to turn this ship around and build our way out of it, basically.
So, the challenge you're talking about, the federal government walking away from housing. I think we peaked around the early 70s. We built about 240,000 homes. We're just in and around that or just below that. And the challenges sometimes are at City Hall, but they're also a lack of labor. There's so many moving parts. So we don't have enough folks in the construction sector doing all of this work that's required. And I know some of that may be prefab housing. Maybe we can work around that. But it seems to me that the honest answer to the public would be this is going to take 10 to 20 years to fundamentally turn things around where you will notice changes. Is that a fair assessment?
I think that's a fair assessment in thinking longer term to actually see a very different landscape where the young generation can access housing at an affordable level. I think we're now at the toughest time right now in terms of 30 years of not building enough housing. So we've got a huge supply challenge and an industry that I think is actually ready to modernize. It's basically the last industry to modernize. Everything else that we have is manufactured somewhere, utilizes a lot of technology. All of those productivity and efficiency measures haven't really been applied totally to housing as we know it. There's still lots of stuff that happens on site. The materials all showing up and being put together.
8 months to build a single family home is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, but I'd say that also on the permitting and licensing side, the policy side, the financing side, it's the biggest industry in the world, basically. It's the most complex. It's the most fragmented. So it defies organizing in a way that all of the other industries that we manufacture in. So we've got our work cut out for us, unfortunately, in Canada we're laggards at this point. We have for prefabricated or offsite construction, we're less than 5% of the construction. In Sweden, they're 45%.
But so we're putting in what $25, $26 billion, I think, under Prime Minister Carney. That's the deal to help to get the homes built on the prefab side. It's something of that number. Yeah. So is that realistic though, that we're going to actually change the industry enough that it's going to have actually an impact on affordability and building homes quickly? You think that?
I think we can make a big difference. Yeah, I think in these next couple of years, by aligning all of the government tools, basically, in the federal government, we have federal land, we have a balance sheet, we have the financial capacity to do more loans, to do investments into the industry to help them modernize and scale up. So we have an opportunity to go a lot farther and faster than ever before. I think we're seeing a need to really focus on controlling costs and operating costs, what we spend in government, but then increase what we invest. And this is on the invest side. So I think these are long-term investments for our country, just like our homes are for each of us. Mm-hmm. We've got to make the investment to modernize and to scale up our construction. We have to build a lot faster. We've got to double how much housing we build every year. But that is going to take, we expect that'll take 10 years to be doing 500,000 homes a year. But if we can get that trajectory scaling up and focus on Canadian technology, Canadian manufacturing, it's going to be great for jobs too.
Part of the challenge also, to my understanding, especially your prefab homes, is the upfront cost of actually building these homes. But you don't, the banks aren't giving you the loans until you're actually on the site putting all this stuff together when you actually need the money up front. That's part of the challenge as well.
There is a financing challenge. That's part of that. It is front end loaded in terms of the work to design and fabricate a house or a home, or building components that you would manufacture offsite. Then the actual assembly goes very fast. There are some tools that the federal government can bring to the table to make it easier on the financing side and help to shift that so it's not a burden, so it's not a barrier.
Now, the average cost of a detached or semi-detached home in Vancouver was $827,000 when you were elected mayor in 2008. It was $2.3 million when you left office in 2018. What are the lessons you learned as mayor that you are taking into this job to hopefully, as you say, make housing more affordable? Yeah,
well, I think we've seen that kind of an increase happen across Canada since that time as well. In the last 10 years across Canada, the price of homes has skyrocketed as well, for all the same reasons that Vancouver, we were on the early side of that. And again, as I said, if we don't have all levels of government focused on this so that we can speed up construction and we can take the costs down, those are the two pieces. Then we can build at scale and deliver homes more affordably. We have to be able to build way more affordable homes as fast as possible. working with all levels of government and the private sector. And that's the work. It's exciting work for me right now. We weren't able to get that alignment in my, particularly in the most of my time as mayor. We just did not have that alignment across government. And I mean, the bigger challenge in Vancouver is very constrained in terms of land base. You know, Vancouver is hemmed in by the ocean and the boundaries around us. Canada, we have a lot more land to work with, but we do need to focus our development. And, you know, those are learnings from here in Metro Vancouver. We need to build where there's transit so people can get around affordably. Transportation is a cost of living along with housing. So how do we get the most out of our transit systems and reduce the traffic burden that people trying to come from afar? And you know, keep the cost of all of the housing infrastructure, the water, the wastewater, the roads, all those things. You need all that to have housing. But if you sprawl all over the place, it's very expensive to build that infrastructure. So yeah, learnings, lots of learnings from working at the local level. Now wearing a federal hat, I think I can apply a lot of those, and lots of great partnerships that, you know, connections with people, mayors and premiers across the board to get this done.
You're also minister responsible for infrastructure, and within the news, the last little while has been talk about Canada's infrastructure bank loaning BC Ferries $1 billion at 1.8% interest to build 4 vessels, which has been pushed by BC Ferries. Do you think that was a mistake?
You know, I think it's extremely disappointing as someone from BC who's on the ferries all the time. I think for a lot of us, we just shake our heads and think, really, we're in 2025, we're still not able to build these ferries for ourselves.
Were you aware of this, that the infrastructure bank was making this loan as minister?
No, I wasn't, and that's upstream, and that's where I can get into the mechanics of that, how that deal works or worked. But I think, you know, for all of us, it's like thinking about the importance of the ferry system is primary. Like, I don't know how many of us have been on multi-sailing waits because of a ferry maintenance issue, which keeps happening. These are the oldest and biggest ships we have in BC. And so that's priority one, is to get replacement ships that are reliable and that serve our coast, get us around. And I think Canadian manufacturing is a huge priority for me on the housing side. That's what I'm very, very, very focused on. Canadian jobs, Canadian materials. So it's really disappointing when this happens and it's shipped offshore, basically, for the deal. The Canadian Infrastructure Bank, in this case, is financing part of the deal. It's a bank, so just like a bank, when we get a mortgage, they don't say, well, you can't buy that house, or this is the house that you have to buy if you want our money. That's sort of the analogy I would say here is the Canadian Infrastructure Bank funded the procurement, the purchase of ferries, so that all of us in BC will have a more reliable ferry fleet. They
don't look at whether or not it's getting built in China.
They don't. No.
And you were not aware of that at all?
No, I wasn't. It happened, I think, in March that the deal was closed off.
So does that process have to change now in your mind? In regards to make the loan, but if it's in places like China, perhaps there has to be a provision somewhere to say that we will not be providing funding because of that.
Yeah, and that's what, in terms of my follow-up meetings with the team at the Infrastructure Bank, asking those questions. How do we make sure we maximize Canadian manufacturing, Canadian jobs, Canadian materials? How would we factor that into financing and loan programs that they have, which, you know, they'll take that home and factor that into their work going forward. Most of what they do is very much Canadian, but in cases where there's no Canadian, in this case, there was no Canadian shipyard that bid on the project. So, that there can be dilemmas like that are very difficult.